of Nerd Central. I'm your host, Mary Grace Rice, and this week we have our flashback special of the media outlet. Who better to help out with this flashback special than the former media outlet host, Alex Sanchez. Alex, how does it feel to be back on set of the media outlet?
It feels like I never left. We have a full show for you guys with another installment of Mighty Morphin Madness, reviews of Spaceballs, Willy Wonka, and the Chocolate Factory, and Goonies. Plus, we become one with the Force with our showdown to see who is the best Star Wars character.
But first, let's talk about some news happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Our favorite captain is on his way out of the MCU. Chris Evans, the man behind Captain America, has no plans to return to the universe after Avengers 4, stating that he wants to get off the train before they push him off. It makes sense. Evans just wants to walk away from the MCU before they show him the door. This would, however, clear the way for either Bucky or Sam Wilson's Falcon to take up the mantle of Captain America, seeing as how both characters have donned the Star-Spangled Uniform in the comics. We will just have to wait and see.
In other news, Marvel's first female-led film has started production and announced some familiar faces to the cast. Captain Marvel has started shooting with Clark Gregg, Jamon Hansu, and Lee Pace returning as Agent Coulson, Korath, and Ronan the Accuser, respectively. This marks the first time Clark Gregg has appeared in an MCU film since, spoilers, his death in The Avengers and his resurrection in the TV series Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This also marks the first time outside Loki that a Marvel villain has gotten a second movie to show their villainous off. The film is scheduled to be released on March 8th, 2019. For the first time on this show, we're gonna go after Marvel. Come on, Marvel. DC did this last year. You're falling behind, but I'm glad to see more female-led superhero films now with the success of Wonder Woman. Right, Mary Grace?
Oh, for sure. It gives little girls someone to look up to and aspire to be. I love it.
Now let's take the Haley Southard review of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Come with me and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination.
Hi, this is Haley Southard from Nerd Central, and today I will be talking about the 1971 film Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Starring Peter Ostrum as Charlie and Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka, director Mel Stewart brings to life the musical tale of excitement and adventure based on the book by Roald Dahl. Charlie is a young boy and one of 5 lucky children to win a golden ticket from Willy Wonka. The first room they enter is the chocolate room, where everything is edible. The first kid to get into trouble is Augustus. Augustus falls into the chocolate river and gets sucked up a pipe as the rest of the families look on in shock. He gets stuck for a moment, but he shoots free with the rest of the chocolate. In the invention room, the second kid to cause trouble is Violet. She starts chewing some unperfected gum and turns into a blueberry. Violet is later taken away by the Oompa Loompas, little helpers who work for Willy Wonka. The third kid to cause trouble is Veruca, a spoiled little girl who wants everything she sees and she wants it now. In the factory, she wants a golden egg but ends up down the garbage chute after being labeled a bad egg. The last troublemaker is Mike, a boy addicted to video gaming. Mike jumps in front of a machine and is zapped into millions of tiny pieces only to be put together in a TV. The problem is that he has shrunk several sizes. Finally, with Charlie as the last kid unharmed, Willy Wonka declares Charlie as heir to the factory. I enjoy this film because the storytelling is original and Wilder's acting made Willy Wonka look crazy enough without going over the top. His dialogue is subtle, but you still get the hint that Wonka is supposed to be crazy. I enjoyed the tunnel scene because it looked like an actual set while still giving off the feeling of Wonka going insane. Fun fact, Mel Stewart didn't want Willy Wonka to be a musical, but the producers persuaded him with the success of Mary Poppins and the Wizard of Oz.
Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-da. If you're not greedy, you will go far. You will live in happiness too, like the Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-doo. Doompa-dee-doo.
However, don't trust my opinion. Watch it and decide for yourself. That's all from me. This is Haley Southard with Nerd Central. Stay nerdy.
Thanks, Haley. Let's talk about the news coming out of the other Marvel Universe from Fox. X-Men Dark Phoenix has been pushed back into 2019. Continuing the story in First Class, our favorite mutants must now survive a global threat in the 1990s. The film will focus on Jean Grey and her alter ego, the Dark Phoenix. This is not the first time the Dark Phoenix was brought to the big screen. 2006's X-Men The Last Stand was loosely based on the storyline. The film will now be released on February 14th.
Let's take it to Keegan Cooper's review of The Goonies.
Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Keegan Cooper from Nerd Central, and as I promised you last time, I'm going to review arguably one of the greatest films we have ever witnessed, Steven Spielberg's The Goonies. To start this movie off, it's every kid's dream. Who doesn't want to go on an adventure with their friends and find buried treasure? It's what every kid wants. But as the movie progresses, you learn some of the dark truth behind the movie. And that's what I'm here to talk about today, the dark truth. First of all, when the movie opens, there's only one cop. And it doesn't really make sense, because why would there be one lone cop in charge of a bunch of prisoners? It makes even less sense that when the officer walks into the cell and he sees Jake Fratelli's body hanging, he wouldn't call for backup. Like, what? And if that's not enough, his brother Francis is pouring gasoline outside the county jail. Are there no people outside in town that see this happening? Jake walks right out the front door and scrambles into the car. And then, now the policemen come outside putting on their coats. Francis shoots the gasoline and then fire blazes up, preventing the police from even chasing them. At least this time, someone had the presence of mind to call for backup. But the Fratellis conveniently drive past every major character in the entire movie. And folks, that's just the beginning of the movie. The first 3 minutes, and there's already a flaw. And finally, let's get to the number one flaw about this movie, which if you think about it, it's truly dark. Let's talk about one of the most famed characters in the Goonies, Sloth. Now when we're first introduced to Sloth, the giant physically deformed brother of Jake and Francis, Jake is singing opera to him and yelling at him for interrupting. Sloth is chained in a room in the basement of a restaurant with only a small TV for entertainment. What's wrong with this picture right here? Are the Fratellis doing, let's say, torture? I mean, he's literally chained up in a basement. Later we find out that Sloth really is a sweetheart. And in the scene on the pirate ship, we figure out why he looks the way he does. His mother dropped him as a baby into a vat of acid, apparently. I mean, come on, should she even have kids? So if you ignore the narrative progression and just focus on how he's been the way the whole time, he was chained to a wall with zoo chains. By his family. By his own family. You realize that this is no doubt the darkest and most awful thing about the Goonies. And yet it gets glossed over big time. Nobody even thinks about it because it's Sloth. At least, in the end, he gets to go live with Chunk's family. Plus, in the novelization, the book, we learn that he even gets his own bar mitzvah. Now, I'll be honest. I never wanted to bash this movie. I like the Goonies, and I didn't really want to say anything bad about it. But let's be honest. This movie has many flaws, some of which make the movie so bad. The Goonies, a great idea, but it came up short for me. As much as we all love Chunk and the Truffle Shuffle, this movie just didn't make the cut for me. That's going to do it for me here this week on Nerd Central. I'm Keegan Cooper. Join me next week when we take you back in time and find out who the true user is.
Thanks, Keegan.
We're going to take a short break, but stick with us as we have our next installment of Mighty Morphin Madness and my co-host reviews Spaceballs. Plus a showdown to see who is the best Star Wars character. Stay plugged in to Nerd Central's flashback special of the media outlet. Welcome back to Nerd Central's flashback special of the media outlet. Let's talk about some more movie news. We finally have some clarity as to what Phil Lord and Chris Miller will be credited as in Solo, a Star Wars story. The directing duo have elected to take executive producer credits for the film. The two left the project over creative differences with Lucasfilm. Solo: A Star Wars Story is scheduled to release on May 25th. Another story about creative differences. I'm getting sick and tired of these stories.
Relax, this is your first show back.
At least you didn't have to report another Star Wars story.
You're right.
Now let's take it to my co-host's pack over the film Spaceballs.
I can't breathe in this thing!
Oh, Spaceballs. Where do I start? If you don't know about the movie Spaceballs, it's a movie that came out in 1987, and it's basically a parody of Star Wars. The movie doesn't follow the plot of Star Wars, but it's filled with plenty of gags and spoofs that reference the beloved series.
I am the keeper of a greater magic, a power known throughout the universe as the
Force?
No, the Schwartz.
Spaceballs takes place in a distant galaxy where the planet Spaceball has run out of air supply, leaving its citizens with a product called Perrier. Get it? In desperation, the leader of Spaceball, President Scroob, played by Mel Brooks, orders the menacing Dark Helmet to kidnap Princess Vespa from the oxygen-rich planet Juridia and hold her hostage in exchange for air. Luckily, space pilot Lone Star and his half-man, half-dog partner Barf come to Princess Vespa's rescue. So clearly, the characters alone are parody references, and these characters are part of what makes the movie so funny. The played-up personalities are hilarious. I especially enjoy the ridiculous dynamic between Dark Helmet and Colonel Sanders. I enjoyed it so much, in fact, that when the movie wasn't focused on them, I found myself waiting for one of their scenes to start again.
Oh, your helmet is so big.
Lord Helmet, what? You need it on the bridge, sir.
Knock on my door! Knock next time!
Yes, sir.
Did you see anything?
No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
Good!
Before I watched the movie, I was worried that since I don't know, well, really much of anything about Star Wars, that I wouldn't get the references. But I was pleased to find out this wasn't the case at all. The visual gags in the movie are hilarious, and the movie is packed with them. Like Lone Star's Winnebago, that's just a small detail of the movie, but it made me laugh out loud when I watched it. And like when Dark Helmet is in the desert and instead of his normal outfit, he's in some tan safari gear and helmet, and it's utterly ridiculous. The movie definitely had a dad joke vibe to it, but it works. And for how old the movie is, its humor stays relevant for the most part. Like when they make fun of all of Star Wars merchandising.
Merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made. Spaceballs the t-shirt, Spaceballs the coloring book, Spaceballs the lunchbox, Spaceballs the breakfast cereal, Spaceballs the flamethrower. The kids love this one.
The movie was pretty funny, but the major downfall I found was that it had quite a few lulls. There were moments when I became bored while watching it, and if the scene wasn't that funny or didn't have some ridiculous gag, I was not entertained. The movie is about an hour and a half long, and I honestly felt like it was too dragged out. Overall, I'd give Spaceballs a 6.5. I'd say the movie is definitely worth the watch, especially if you are a Star Wars fan. But I don't think I'd watch it multiple times because I think part of what made the humor so funny is that the ridiculous jokes were unexpected every time. I don't think I could get through the entire movie again just because I feel like it was dragged out, but the gags definitely got me laughing. This has been Mary Grace Rice reviewing for Nerd Central.
Thanks, Mary Grace.
You're welcome.
I miss the days of hosting and making a pack for the same show. You got me some nostalgic for that time.
Trust me, it gets old quick.
Now let's take it to the next installment of Mighty Morphin Madness.
Welcome to another episode of Mighty Morphin Madness with me, your host, Zach Brown. where we gonna talk about everybody's favorite teenagers with attitude, the Power Rangers.
What is that odious stench? Smells like teenagers.
In this episode, I want to talk about the recent Power Rangers movie that was released in 2017. Saban's Power Rangers was released on March 24th, and it is considered a reboot of the popular franchise using the general story and characters of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers television series. The film focuses on 5 teenagers: Jason, Billy, Kimberly, Trini, and Zach. Jason, a star football player, gets kicked off the team. He meets Billy and Kimberly in detention. They eventually meet Trini and Zach at a construction site where they originally discovered the 5 power coins. The next morning, they wake to find they have superpowers, and the power coins are linked to them. They go back to the construction site to find some answers, and eventually they stumble on an alien ship buried underground, which houses the original Red Ranger Zordon and his robot assistant Alpha 5.
Joke? We're talking to a wall.
I was kind of expecting a little more.
Zordon informs the teenagers that the evil Rita Repulsa, the original Green Ranger, has come back after killing the original Rangers besides him, and the chosen teenagers have to learn to become a team to become the Power Rangers to take down Rita Repulsa and the monster that she is creating in Goldar. The Rangers eventually learn to become a team and then are allowed to morph into the Power Rangers, and with the help from their Zords, they take down Rita's monster in Goldar and destroy Rita along with it. The movie became notable because it became the first blockbuster film to feature LGBT and autistic superheroes in the form of Trini, the Yellow Ranger, and Billy, the Blue Ranger. The mid-credit scene was a cliffhanger of sorts to set up a potential sequel, with the Rangers in detention and the teacher calling for the name of Tommy Oliver, who in the original series was the evil Green Ranger, who would then become the 6th Ranger of the team.
Tommy Oliver! Tommy Oliver.
The film was considered a box office disappointment, and the potential of a sequel is now up in the air because of the disappointment of the movie. Overall, I wasn't a huge fan of the movie. The movie had some good moments, but overall, the movie did too much different things than the original show, and not in a good way. The movie I felt would have been good if it wasn't a Power Rangers movie, because it lacked some of the important elements that made the show so popular back in the day, and it barely showed the teens in their suits, which can be argued is the main reason behind the Power Rangers. This has been Zach Brown from Mighty Morphin Madness, now back to Nerd Central.
Just keeps coming. There's too many of them. You guys hold them on.
Where are you going?
Thanks, Zach.
That's going to do it for this week's episode. We would like to thank Alex Sanchez for coming back and hosting this special with me. How was it?
Great. Now, can I go back to anchoring Channel 8 News?
Funny you should mention that. You can catch Alex anchoring Channel 8 News at 6:30 p.m. right here on KNWT Channel 8. Nerd Showdown is next.
You can get caught up on all of the previous episodes on KNWT YouTube page. Also follow KNWT on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow Nerd Central on Twitter at nerd_central_TV.
The battle to see who is the best Star Wars character is coming up after the break. Stay with us.
Get ready for the smackdown!
Hello and welcome to Nerd Showdown, the part of Nerd Central where we battle it out on a particular topic we have no business debating. I'm your host, Devin Vincent, and with the releases of The Last Jedi and Solo, we ask the question, who or what is the best Star Wars character? Keep in mind, our fighters will be diving deep into their respective characters' backstories, so this is your spoiler warning. Let's introduce our fighters. To my right, I have one of the hosts of Catatouille, Chrissy Ray Parker. Chrissy Ray, who have you chosen?
I've chosen Ray.
And to my left, I have the producer of Story Behind the Story, Clint Brummett. Clint, which character have you chosen?
Kylo Ren, baby.
Fighters, you know the rules, so let's show down!
Let's kick it, let's all get
it, put your hands in the sky for a one-way ticket. Come on, everybody, gonna start this party. If we turn it to 11, then we can't go home.
Chrissy Ray, you're up first. Your time starts now.
I think she is by far the best character there. First off, she's a woman, so I have to throw that in there. I also just think that she naturally can inherit the Force. It's more raw than getting trained, and she didn't previously get any training. It just came to her naturally. I think that no matter what, she'll just keep rising. Even getting more training, it'll only double. And right now where she's at is pretty amazing. Yeah, I just think she's a powerhouse and will do big things coming up in the next films. I think the first film already proved it. The next film, I think she just is starting to learn more of who she is and dive more into her backstory, which is important, but I also think, again, she just has it in her. She's gonna be a powerhouse.
A strong opening argument from Chrissy Ray. Clint, your time starts now.
All right, first off, you're wrong, all right? Kylo Ren is easily the best Star Wars character of all time, and here's why. He has a very rough past, and he has endured very much, and he has come out of it a very strong individual. And he has a lot to command and a lot of people and a lot of ships, and he is just a boss. I mean, there's no denying it. He's got a badass lightsaber and an awesome mask. Even if he destroyed it in the elevator, I believe he's going to bring it back. He's very strong, very gifted in the Force. He's able to communicate with Rey through the Force, even though they're like super far away on different planets and ships. And Kylo Ren can fly a ship just as good. I mean, he's just a great pilot. He's a good person. Killed his dad. You just have to overlook that fact. A mom is a son's heart. And if you leave your mom like that, then it's just, tugs at the heartstrings. So he had to do what he had to do. Leader Snoke asked him to kill his dad, and he did it, and that shows dedication. And he's leading the First Order to great heights, and he's going to take down the Resistance.
I think that Kylo Ren is a wimp, and the fact that he has to have people affirm him every day, that he's a leader, that he can do this and this and this, it's just like, okay, it's overwhelming. Like, that's enough. Like, we've heard it. It's just too much right now.
Rey is just a sad excuse for a person. Whoa. Her parents abandoned her when she was little. She worked as a scavenger. Like, that's just disgusting. Like, she lived in just a broken robot, and she had to eat this nasty little bread that she had to pour water on. She plays with her helmets and thinks she's flying ships. She thinks she's a hero, but she's really not.
I think that Rey is still way better and is so much stronger. Again, she didn't need any training. I just think that Kylo Ren is just a weak little sad person, and he has daddy issues and mommy issues.
She looks towards other people for help, and she's just pathetic about it. She's been captured twice, like I said, and even in like the last fight where Kylo and Rey were fighting together, Rey got captured and Kylo had to save her.
That's gonna do it for this week's showdown. This week, the winner is Rey.
Yes, I told you.
It's rigged.
It's not.
Blatantly
it is
rigged.
True.
It's blatantly rigged.
I'm just...
See, he even needs affirmation.
You can head to Nerd Central's Twitter to show your support for this week's showdown. Nerdmageddon is coming up next. You can catch Chrissy Ray hosting Catatouille at 7:45 p.m. and you can catch Story Behind the Story at 9:15. See you next week on Nerd Central.
Thank you for watching this episode of Nerd Central. If you didn't watch last week's episode, you can click right here. To watch Nerdmageddon's latest episode, you can click right there. And if you like all of KNWT's content, click the subscribe button right over there. We'll see you guys next week.